Welcome to the Cowcast. I'm Mike, and along with me today I have...
Demoan
and Mikey.
And since my pick this week, I've chosen Dark Knight, A True Batman Story, an original graphic novel by Paul Dini and illustrated by Eduardo Risso. And this is actually from Vertigo, the autobiographical story of Paul Dini's story of how he was mugged and his face got broken, and kind of how Batman was over his shoulder to help him through it. As his horrible incident happened in 1993 when he was still working on Batman the Animated Series and Tiny Toon Adventures, but they were just getting ready to make Mask the Phantasm as this happened to him. But how did you guys how'd you feel? Initial thoughts on Dark Knight, A True Batman Story?
I thought it was really good. When you told us about the story, you said it was Paul Dini, how he used Batman to reconcile with the event that happened to him, and I was expecting something a little more like an actual Batman story with like parts of like his life thrown in, but like what I got was the opposite, where it's just his life with parts of Batman thrown in, which I liked.
Yeah, I like the story as well. What Demoan said, how I thought originally that it was just going to be a Batman story that was like loosely based off of the incident with Paul Dini, but no, this is literally just a straight up explanation of what happened, but with Batman elements thrown in, which I thought was really great stuff.
Yeah, and it's the way it works is that Paul Dini explains at the beginning, as a kid, he always imagined his favorite cartoon characters becoming alive and like kind of being over his shoulder. And after the incident, the same thing happened again. It constantly happened throughout his life, but this time he kind of had a duality of the Joker and Batman kind of both on his shoulder. But it was ultimately Batman that helped him through it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Like, the Joker and Batman are essentially like the devil and angel on like someone's shoulder, like their conscience.
Right. And in case if you don't know who Paul Dini is as you're listening to this, Paul Dini was a writer on Batman the Animated Series and worked on a bunch of other cartoons like Tiny Toons, for example. But he's also gone on to write comic books. He had a run on Detective Comics, and he's also done Gotham City Sirens and Batman Streets of Gotham. He's the co-creator of Harley Quinn with Bruce Timm. And he's also the writer of the Arkham Asylum and Arkham City video games.
Okay. I love those games.
So Paul Dini has had a very storied career with the Caped Crusader. So much so that anytime Paul Dini's name is announced really on anything, everyone gets excited.
Yeah, he's been...
He's also done a run on Zatanna, because he's a huge Zatanna fan.
Okay, I did not know that one.
Not either.
And then, if you're curious, his favorite Superman villain is Mr. Mxyzptlk.
Really?
Yes.
Oh god.
So that episode of the cartoon for Superman, he wrote that.
Interesting character.
Yeah, that's his favorite Superman villain. Which, of course, in Action Comics 1000, the story he did, of course, uses Mixie.
Gotcha. Isn't like the only way to get rid of Mixie is to say his name backwards?
Yes. No, he has to say his name backwards.
That's...
So Superman has to come up with a way for him to say his name out loud backwards.
That is... I don't know how that's even possible. Okay.
Yeah, that's the joke. But kind of diving into the story, I really don't want to give too much away about it, because everyone should really just go out and read this book, because it's beautifully drawn by Eduardo Risso, who's known for 100 Bullets, Transmetropolitan, and he's also worked on Batman Broken City and the Flashpoint tie-ins for Batman, along with Batman Deathblow. But kind of, what was your... If you want to just talk about some of the moments of this book, because I really kind of don't want to give it all away. But also, if you're wondering, this isn't like a book talking about what it was like to work on Batman the Animated Series. There's a little bit of that, but it's about a guy's struggle through a horribly traumatic experience, but also like looking back on his past and realizing how to become a better person.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of a self-improvement scenario, which I thought was really, really interesting.
Yeah. Well, what I want to talk about is my favorite part was like basically like right off the beginning where he explains his childhood.
Right.
I liked how, like, for example, he talks about how, like, he explains how, like, say, like, there's a kid and, like, he's invisible to everybody.
Right.
And how, essentially, like, even though how he tries to, like, you know, get people's attention and whatnot, people still ignore him, and, people, like, you know, still, like, don't pay attention to him and stuff like that. Like, and that's basically, like, how, if anyone who's, like, grew up reading comics or whatnot, that's how most of them have felt, like, growing up. Like, how they were, like, outcast or, like, didn't fit in well with other people. And while he's explaining that, he essentially says, but when he goes back home, like, he starts to, like, feel that he's visible again. And then, like, and visually you can see, like, what Risu does is that he starts coloring the invisible child, because at first he doesn't color the child at all. Mm-hmm. And then when he said once he's visible, then that's when he let his imagination take over, and that's how Dini found his talent, which I thought was, like, really, really relatable. A really, really, like, a relatable story in the beginning.
I also really like, because same reasons I like the beginning because of Mikey, but I also like the specific point where he realized that his relationship with the girl he thought he was seeing, or he thought they had a relationship, but there really wasn't anything. And I really love the moment where it hit him. Where
it's such a heartbreaking moment. It's just like, oh, man.
It's just like, wow, okay, like, it's one thing to be like, oh, she's in a relationship with you, but it's just for, like, appearance. But, like, she has, like, the goal to ask, oh, are you seeing anyone? Mm-hmm. Like there's not a relationship at all.
Well, the thing, the book goes into it, like, the girl's name was Vivian. Yeah, Vivian is doing the same thing, but so is Paul. Like, Paul's doing the same exact thing as well. Like, he's only with her because it makes him look good as well.
Right.
But I think some of my favorite conversations in the book actually stem from Alan Burnett, who was the producer of Batman the Animated Series and also a writer, who at this point he kind of would have been everyone's boss, really.
Oh, right. Okay. So he's like the head honcho when it comes to, like, the projects and whatnot.
Well, yeah, the way that the series was spearheaded by animators Bruce Timm and Eric Radomski. They were the storyboard artists and did all the character designs. And then when the show went to air, Alan Burnett became the head producer, kind of keeping everyone in line. And then he was also a story writer as well. And they brought Paul Dini in as a storyboard writer as well.
Okay.
But, like, everyone worked on that show. Like, I think Heart of Ice was written by Dini and Bruce Timm. I know Bruce Timm directed Heart of Ice, but it was but Alan Burnett in himself is a great Batman writer as well. But I really liked the conversations with Alan Burnett because he's kind of positioned as this guy trying to put Paul on the right track. But, like, he does it in a very subtle way, but also, like, he continually doesn't give up on the guy when clearly, like, Paul is at his lowest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But, Demoan was talking about the sequence early on in the beginning where Paul Dini is at dinner with this girl that he thinks is seeing, which he originally thought it was broken off, but she's back in town, so they have dinner. But
yes,
Paul Dini's life at this point, which, by the way, if you want to hear him talk about this, he did a whole episode with Kevin Smith on Fat Man on Batman where he talks about the whole experience, which I highly recommend you go listen to after you read the book.
Okay. And I listened to Fat Man on Batman too, so I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it's one of the earlier episodes. I think it might be the second time he was on the show.
Okay.
The first time he was on the show, he talks about his whole career, like early on in animation, like working for Hanna-Barbera, which is cool.
All right, cool.
But yeah, this time, like, for himself at this point in time, he's very comfortable with his living situation in terms of he's gotten to buy everything he's ever wanted.
Right.
But
there's been nothing holding him back.
there's nothing holding him back. But at the same time, where we get to the point where he does get mugged, the worst experience in the world is coming home, and he says it right in the book. The worst experience is, yes, you have all your collectibles and everything you've ever wanted, but after you get the shit knocked out of you and, like, basically almost got killed, there is no one at home to say, oh my god.
Yeah.
And that's, like, that's the worst kind of...
It's extremely sad. Like,
yeah.
It is. I think another Vivian moment was when probably just as heartbreaking as almost the first one, was when he called her immediately after he got mugged from dropping her off.
Yeah.
And her response was to try to bring it back to herself.
Yep.
Yeah, because she mostly talks about herself, like, throughout most of their conversations, and he mostly tries to ignore her. Like,
yeah, he gives, like, the one-word answers, like, yeah.
Yeah, like...
To play, like he's just kind of there for being there.
Yeah. Like, you could tell, like, the way he's drawn, like, his expression on his face, like, okay, like, make it stop, please. Or change the topic or something that's not about you.
And how the attack came about was after that dinner with Vivian, Paul Dini decided to walk the other way to make it look like he had something else to do.
Yes.
And that's where he saw the two men following him, and the scariest part about it was, like, he heard them making fun of him. So they had been there a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then they this bum rush him, and it is the whole mugging scene is, like, really, really haunting to read.
Yes. Most definitely. And didn't Vivian offer to take him home, like, before?
Yes.
Yeah, she offered to take him closer, but he wanted to look like he had something to do.
Or someone else to meet. That was the thing.
Yeah.
He tried to show her up.
Or something.
So he gets the shit knocked out of him, and just, like I said, he literally kind of crawls back home, and just that horribly lonely feeling of no one being there. And obviously he calls the police, and he doesn't go to the hospital for, like, a day later.
Yeah.
Like, people had to convince him to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah. Arlene Sorkin that he talked to.
Yes, Arlene Sorkin. Well,
who's the voice actress for Harley Quinn, I believe.
Yes, was the inspiration and original voice of Harley Quinn, who is one of Paul Dini's old and great friends.
Yes. But to go back to the little muggers, I like how they're drawn. Like, there's a lot of use of, like, silhouettes and shadows to make them more intimidating and more menacing, which gives the reader, like, the feeling of, like, oh crap, like, they act like he might actually, like, he's in trouble here. Like,
and it's early on. It feels like the way the book is illustrated by Risso, is the early parts are kind of this watercolor based.
Yes, he uses a lot of different styles.
Yeah. Which is a style I've never seen from him before. But in the mugging scene, it's the more traditional Eduardo Risso art that I've known and still love very much. I'm a big fan of his art. And it's really in the sequences where he's getting beat up that it's the traditional Eduardo Risso art. And then as Paul Dini's telling the story, it goes back to the watercolors.
Yeah.
You're right.
And actually, like, his style reminded me of the animated series, like Batman the Animated Series, like, during the entire, like, mugging.
Yeah, a little bit. But as Paul Dini sits alone, he kind of has this... He goes about the start of this self-discovery journey.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you guys think? Like, did you think the book was really going to be about that, or?
I mean, as I said, like, before, I thought it was a Batman story. Like, so I didn't expect all of this. It was a really, like, surprise. I've never really read a comic book literally, like, straight up based off of a traumatic event, like a true traumatic event. So, I mean, but it was great.
Which is, when I first read that Paul Dini put this book out, I was really curious to see how it was going to be like. and it's unlike anything I've really ever read before, and it's really, really interesting.
Because it's real. Like, that's the thing. Like, it's real and it's true, so...
Yeah. And not only that is... After reading this, I don't think anyone else could have illustrated it other than Eduardo Risso, just because of the different styles he has with the watercolors and his more traditional art to tell the story. It fits so perfectly.
It does. He does. It's a wonderful job the way he does it.
Yes, it's incredible.
Like he uses what probably would be the best style for each scene that he changes up
to like inflict different moods and stuff like that. So.
Mm-hmm.
I liked, but as Paul kind of starts wallowing in self-pity, I like that how, like, the Joker keeps popping up to keep him in his place, like, trying to keep him in place, because Paul kind of has a crisis where, after getting mugged, he kind of doesn't see the fun in writing Batman anymore.
Yeah, he, like, takes off of work for, like a week or two, I believe.
Yeah.
It feels too real to him now.
Yeah. Like, he takes off work, like, he drinks, he starts, like, drinking, like, alcohol, like, a lot.
Yeah, he falls really in a really kind of deep down, dark depression.
Yeah.
Where he gets walking pneumonia because of how late he's out.
Mm-hmm.
Which then puts him off work more.
Yes. And then, one of the things that I really, like, actually, like, it touched me, like, really badly, was, like, the part where he, in his mind, he imagined how Batman, like, what if Batman was there, like, to actually save him from his attack, but in reality, like, it's real life, that wasn't actually going to happen.
Right.
I like the parts where Batman kind of appears over his shoulder, and he's just like, you're not doing anything to better, like, you're just sitting here and afraid to go outside. Like, you could have done this, this, and this to even prevent it, but no. It's almost like Paul kind of wanted it. At least that's the way he plays it in his head. Like, he was prepared to get beat up.
Right.
And was expecting it, but didn't do anything to, like, prevent it.
Yes.
But the sequence that really got me was the part where Paul Dini considers buying a gun.
Yes.
And he tells that story, which I don't want to spoil that one because that's really, really scary.
Mm-hmm.
Terrifying.
But yeah, like, Paul has this this horribly, like, writer's block crisis, and he even considers leaving the staff of Batman to go to a different show. It's like he's afraid to go outside because he thinks everyone's looking at him because his face is all broken.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like this great story of how Batman continually was there to push him in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Where eventually, when he's with his sister, he meets a clerk at, like, a record store where he's like he's wearing his Warner Brothers jacket, and because he's like, at the beginning, Paul is like, this doesn't matter to anyone.
Yeah.
Right.
And the clerk's wife has cancer, but man, does he like the cartoons they make.
Yeah, especially he loves Tiny Toons.
Yeah. Which, and it's almost kind of a cliche ending, but, like, I think Paul kind of needed that kind of experience to really push him back in the right direction.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
To realize that his work does matter to some people.
Yeah, and it's funny now considering that Paul Dini is, like, a hugely celebrated figure among fans of Batman the Animated Series.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, anytime his name is attached, it's fan favorite writer Paul Dini. The thing, like, so much so that, by the way, his Detective Comics run, good luck trying to find it in trade because it's out of print. Which it's like the white whale of Batman books for me. Vince has them, and I'm like, I hate him for it. Overall, I liked the ending too, where he grabs Harley and talks about what he's going to be writing that day.
Yeah, it's great. That's actually it was a touching ending at the end.
Yes, with his creation.
Yes. Oh well, I thought the book was great. I like how he puts in every almost
Every villain.
Batman character, villain. And
At least the
hero.
ones that were on the animated series.
Yeah, my favorite scene. Well, one of my favorite scenes was when he was getting surgery. Well, getting prepped for surgery. With his sister visiting him, and the doctor is like, "Hey, we're about to prepare," and then he's like, "Are you afraid of needles?" And you see Scarecrow.
Yeah, Scarecrow pop out of the curtain
over the drapes with all the needles on his hands and stuff. That was really cool.
It's a very raw story in terms of it doesn't really hold back its punishes, but it's also very honest and true. And I really like that from Dini. He wasn't holding anything back when he wrote this.
Yeah.
And it was, as he talked about on that podcast with Kevin Smith, this was a passion project for him. And now that it's on the shelf, it's something he had to, it felt like it was something he had to get off his chest, honestly.
Yes.
And he's happy to share it with the world.
Yeah, real stories are the best stories, in my opinion. So,
I mean, he even pitched a really cool idea for a Batman the Animated Series episode in here with Death and Morpheus from Sandman.
Oh wow! Okay.
Well, remember, there's the whole sequence where he goes to Alan Burnett and pitches that story, but it's shot down. But that would have made for a cool story. Would have made for a cool episode. But overall, kind of final thoughts, it's kind of a weird episode to record because I really kind of want people to go out and get this book and read it for themselves.
The book will speak for itself, how good it is.
Yeah, so I love this book, and it's kind of it's a really great tale just to read, and it picks yourself up a little bit too. But overall, it's like I said, it's very raw and it doesn't hold back. But if you can get through that, it's a really, really cool read and experience.
Yes.
Demoan, what you got your final thoughts here?
I really love this book. Every part of it was filled with emotion, and that came through in both the writing and the art, which was wonderful. And I mean, if you're not a fan of blood and gore, it's not probably not the best thing for you because there's a decent amount of that. But if you can get through that, it's definitely throw it on your list. It's a wonderful read. The
mugging sequence is a little hard to get through, but I think if you can get through that, you can get through the rest of the book.
You can get through, yeah. The mugging sequence is the only sequence that's probably rough, but
but everything else was fine from after reading it.
So much so that the back cover of him getting beaten up is cover of the trade paperback version, which I was like, wow, they went with that for the trade paperback version of the book. Wow, pulling back no punches there.
Yeah, definitely. What does Paul Dini do now, actually? I haven't...
He is so busy with... He's constantly doing something. I believe he was writing for the Ultimate Spider-Man show at some point.
Was he?
On Disney XD. So I said, one of the main reasons he didn't come back to do Arkham Knight, which was because, number one, video games take a long time to write.
That's actually true.
What?
And he was already busy with 9 other things.
All right.
I believe, did he just do that book with Zatanna and Black Canary?
I
think he did.
I don't know. I'd have to look into that.
It would make sense why he would do that, why that book would even exist. But
I can tell you what he's currently working on. As I pull up his IMDb page.
So if Paul Dini came back for Arkham Knight, that game would have been so much better.
A lot of things would have made that better. But
I mean, story-wise, it would have been a lot better.
As a writer, there's things that have been announced, Untitled Joker Harley Quinn project, Harley Quinn TV series, Gotham City Sirens, comic book. I guess,
Game Insurance is coming out, so I think he's writing that Harley Quinn show.
Yeah. He did the Scooby-Doo episode of Batman the Brave and the Bold, which went straight to DVD.
But that was also a wonderful episode. I love that one.
He's also done some shorts for Justice League Action.
Didn't he do Batman Beyond as well?
Yeah, he wrote... Yeah, Paul worked on Batman the Animated Series. He worked on Superman, Justice League. He worked on all of it through.
Actually, I want to add something. In the story that I thought was interesting, that actually shocked me, when he was walking in the office and they were explaining what happened to him, to his coworkers, and that one black guy was like, "What were they black?" I'm like, "Was that Dwayne McDuffie?" Like, because it looked a lot like Dwayne McDuffie.
No, he names them. It wasn't Dwayne McDuffie.
Ah, okay, that sucks.
I thought it was. I thought it could have been him too, but just in the Batman Tell series, he plays. He's uncredited for Dr. Joan Leland, but apparently that's one of his characters. Like, he wrote one episode of Avengers Assemble. Like, the dude's constantly working.
Yeah.
I'm happy he's working on projects that are like outside of DC too. I didn't think he was gonna do that.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Everyone that was working for those shows in the beginning has since left and done something else, other than Bruce Timm. Bruce Timm's like the last one who still works in Warner Brothers Animation. Everyone else has since kind of moved on.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's kind of a story for another time. But Paul Dini isn't completely gone from the world of superheroes and Batman. He's always coming back to do something else.
Yeah. Which is great.
Because like you said, he's fan favorite Paul Dini.
Exactly. Like,
people love his work, and for good reason.
And the dude keeps himself busy. And by the way, since I mentioned that Love of Satana, he did marry a magician.
Did he?
Yes. His wife's a magician.
That's nice. Gotta commit.
Oh yeah, if you go on Twitter, he's constantly like showing pictures of her like magic shows. It's cute.
Yeah. So I'm assuming his career is like now, like he's extremely successful, making the big bucks. I'm assuming.
I mean, he was extremely successful back in the '90s when the mugging happened.
Yeah.
So the dude, like I said, the dude has constantly kept himself busy, but he's also he's very good at what he does.
Yeah.
If I were to describe how to read Dark Knight: A True Batman Story, it's a trip. Like it is a journey. but it's a journey you should definitely read. Especially if you're a fan of Batman the Animated Series. But like I said, it's not the story of Batman the Animated Series, it's the story of Paul Dini. But if you're a fan of the show, you have to read this.
True.
But Demoan, you have the next pick. What are we reading?
We're on that portion of the show.
Yeah, we're wrapping things up.
What I have decided that we are going to read next time is Batman, Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader.
Ooh, the 2-issue story by Neil Gaiman?
Yep. It chronicles and it's obviously not the real Batman, but Batman has died, and they're chronicling what happened with the prominent figures in his life, so...
Alright, cool.
Yeah, this... that was an outside-the-box idea. I didn't think you were going to pick that. But, yeah, this was... I think it was right after Batman R.I.P. happened. Or it was after R.I.P., before they were getting ready to make the transition to Dick as Batman. Neil Gaiman wrote these 2 issues called Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader, which was kind of a send-off in like kind of placeholder until the new status quo was in place. And it's this kind of weird, trippy tale. It's pretty cool though.
Okay. I thought 2 issues. I thought it would be like a little longer than that, but.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a hardcover out, and it includes like a couple issues of Secret Origins and.
Yeah, it's other book. It's some others. It's some other stuff that Neil Gaiman wrote. But Demoan, it's your choice. Are we just focusing on those 2 issues?
Yeah, I think that's gonna be the easiest one. Focus on just the 2 issues.
And I'm looking it up now. I'm trying to think. Is it an issue of Batman and Detective Comics?
It's an issue of Batman, an issue of Detective Comics. Okay. Yeah, that's all that
and
is.
Drawn by Andy Kubert and inked by Scott Williams.
Ooh, I met Andy Kubert. He's cool.
He's a great artist. His brother's a great artist, and his dad was a great artist.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to that. It's an outside-the-box idea.
Yeah.
I might also like it because it's only 2 issues.
Yeah.
I don't think it definitely easier.
Well, I'll let you know now, because I've read this a long time ago, because for some reason this was in my high school library, because Neil Gaiman wrote it.
Okay. Weird.
These are a really, really packed 2 issues. I'm just gonna let you know. There's a bunch of shit going on.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, yeah, I can imagine. From what the story describes, it doesn't feel like it can be done in 2 issues.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's the beauty of Neil Gaiman.
Yeah. And I'm familiar with his work. He obviously did Sandman, he did,
American Gods, now he's done Norse mythology.
Yeah, he created Angela for
Spawn, and then won the lawsuit against Todd and put her in Marvel just to spite him.
Did he work on Lucifer as well, or was that someone else?
Yeah, he worked on Lucifer, and I believe he did some books, and did some books of magic.
Alright, cool.
Yeah, but he's mainly, the big comic thing he's known for is, of course, Sandman.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is coming back. There's a new Sandman series, I think, coming from DC soon.
Oh, wow, okay.
So,
wow.
we kind of hit the pulse on that a little bit. I can't remember, I think someone else is writing it, though, but it does have Neil Gaiman's blessing, and kind of he's overseeing it.
Oh, okay, which is great.
Well, yeah, for the long time was, the only person that was allowed to write Death and Morpheus was Neil Gaiman. But since then, Neil has given his blessing. But yeah, whatever happened to Cape Crusader? Next time. All right, let's say our goodbyes and get out of here.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
All right.
Well, thank you again for joining us, and remember to get home safe.
Get home safe.
Have a good one.